and I'm here for a typical sports fan. And I'm just going to be doing our week one spread picks review. You could have seen the video that Luke and I made last week, giving our best bets of the week. Um, we are essentially just going to do that every week, find a few games we have our best bets on, and give you our analysis of them. And then once a week, we are going to do a review. Luke is on vacation right now, so I'm solo for this one and probably this week. So we're going to dive right into it. This was a crazy week one in football, and almost every week one's crazy. Even if you just look at college football this year, the week one was pretty insane. Appalachian State almost upset Penn State. That would have been crazy because if you remember about 11 years ago, I think it was, Appalachian State went to the Big House in Michigan and upset the Wolverines. But also, you look at the Steelers and the Browns tied. The Browns finally broke their losing streak, but they just couldn't get those free Bud Lights for their fans, could they? The Steelers practically gave them that game, and they couldn't cover. Another storyline: we had the longest game in NFL history this week. The Titans and the Dolphins game ran for 6 hours. Since that was one of our picks, sadly it lost. We did go 4-3-1 on the weekend. Um, I have to do better, just plain and simple. If you take away the Bears money line pick, we went 4-2-1, which isn't bad. But we gave the pick. I got to track it. I have to take that loss. But we're going to start with Tennessee and Miami. This game was absolutely insane. They had two weather delays of over 2 hours. I believe they had almost 5 hours total in weather delays. Pretty much, there were a lot of injuries for Tennessee. Taylor Lewan got injured on a crackback block, which the league is apparently trying to crack down on, but they did not flag the Dolphin player for it. That's kind of confusing to me. There were flags on the play, and I'm going to talk about that play because I am just confused. I thought three penalties, two of them offset, and one of them gets enforced, but apparently I'm wrong with that, which I might be. Feel free to DM me and tell me I'm wrong and explain why. My Twitter is at FVCKGoodell. But back to this game, you look at how Tennessee performed. I didn't think they played bad. I think they had a few calls that didn't go their way. And what I think really screwed them essentially was right before the second quarter ended, right before the weather delay. Like, if this weather delay happened to play before, I don't think it matters. But when it happened, it was right after Malcolm Butler, the former New England Patriot, Super Bowl hero, also a Super Bowl sit out, but he picked off the ball in the end zone and returned it back 30 something yards. He probably could have got a touchdown if he did not try to cut. If you've ever played football, cutting on a wet field, you tend to slip and slide. I thought he could have got a lot farther, but then the offense comes out. There's 1:11 left in the second quarter, and they decide to stop the game. I'm sorry. To me, as a Tennessee backer, that confused me. That's like, listen, there's a minute and 11 seconds. I understand you have to do this for safety, but if there is lightning around, I live in the state of Florida. If there's lightning around, you're going to know for about 15 to 20 minutes before it gets close to you, and the officials should have known that and stopped the game, not waited for a turnover. I think I'm just upset because I took Tennessee as a -1. Also, there were some holding calls, gruesome injuries. Marcus Mariota got hurt, as I think many of you know by now. Delaney Walker had a gruesome injury. He was actually called on a holding that when they went back and looked at it, the broadcasters even said, I don't see a holding. I see a hands to the face on the defense. Derrick Henry scored a touchdown on that play, called it back. You just look at it. We got a bunch of bad bounces that game. But you can't really prepare for weather. Let's move on to the next game. Honestly, this might have been the most shocking team of the week, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We had New Orleans -10. They lost to Tampa Bay by 8 points. Tampa Bay, I don't think they're that good, personally. I think pretty much New Orleans wasn't ready, and that defense has taken a major step back. There's no reason a below mediocre quarterback like Ryan Fitzpatrick should shred up your defense. I don't care who you are. It just shouldn't happen, but it did. We're really feeling the absence of Greg Williams on that team. Offensively, that they had a great game, but that really just shows New Orleans is back to its old ways. Terrible defense, great offense. We'll be lucky if they make the playoffs. It looks like you can't You can't give up 50 points and expect to win. It just doesn't happen. That defense really needs to step up. Let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals, who are currently tied for first place in the AFC North. I apologize, with the Baltimore Ravens, who we will talk about in a second. Cincinnati really, I this game was pretty much like the game. I'm like, listen, Indianapolis is not good defensively. Cincinnati's not much better, but these two teams are terrible. I don't think I'm ever going to bet on either of them again. Like that, I don't. I think it was just a great matchup on the outside for Cincinnati, and they were able to take advantage of it. Joe Mixon had himself a pretty good game, but 34-23 covered 11 points. The defense did look decent. That is also going against a terrible offense, so I cannot really give a true read on the Bengals or the Colts. If you do follow me on Twitter, you will see I've tweeted quite a couple times this phrase: the Buffalo Bills are the Kansas City Royals and Baltimore Orioles of football betting this year. What that means, both of those teams are terrible. You will never bet on them, and we will never bet on the Buffalo Bills. We will almost bet against them every week, and it will more than likely win. This team is not good. Nathan Peterman at quarterback, at one point he was like 5 for 12 with 2 interceptions. He threw an incompletion, and his quarterback rating went up. This team has a good defense. Allegedly. I didn't see it on Sunday. I did not see what this good defense was supposed to be. This was a playoff team last year. Not a very good playoff team, but they were a playoff team. Baltimore, hey, hats off to you. You dominated the game. 47-3 is the final. Like, Baltimore dominated every facet, and I think they just looked so much better than I expected. We did have them covering the -7.5, but I thought it would maybe be a 2-score game, not a big lot of score game. Sorry, quick math is not my forte, but they just dominated. Let's move on to our push of the week. Seattle looked a lot better than I expected, and Denver did exactly what I expected them to do. That is why beating Vegas is so hard. They had the spread at -3 right before the game, and that's where I got it. And Vegas got it right. They hit the nail on the head, and Denver covered, kind of. Not, I guess. If some of you could have got it at -2.5, good for you. You got a W. Some of you could have got it at -3.5. I'm sorry, man. It's a rough break. I thought Denver late could come and cover, but it didn't happen. Let's move on to what I thought the game of the week was: the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers is an amazing quarterback. The fact that he came out and pretty much looked like he was on drugs after the game, which he probably was. Like, I'm not prescribed drugs by a doctor, obviously, but he had a hell of a performance in the second half. But don't let that overshadow the fact that the Bears blew it. Everybody talks about the Falcons blew a 25-point lead, 28-3 in the Super Bowl. But then all I saw this weekend was, oh my God, what an amazing comeback by Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. Well, yes, but you're forgetting that the Chicago Bears were up 20-0. Literally, all they had to do was score a touchdown in the second half, and they couldn't do it. I'm going to point to 3 plays in this game that really kind of ruined it for us, ruined the money line bet. We covered the +7, which, that was probably my most confident bet of the week. I don't think the Packers are going to be very good. Their offensive line looked atrocious. Their defense looked pretty good the second half, but the first half, very questionable. The Chicago Bears defense looked great the first half. The offense looked solid. It kind of reminded me of the Ravens a few years ago, when the defense was so good and the offense was average at best. But then something happened, and this is all on coaching, in my opinion. I don't think the Bears should have lost this game. It's all on coaching. There's no reason on 3rd and 1 you pass the ball in the red zone when Jordan Howard has been pounding the rock and killing the Packers defense that whole drive. There's no reason you don't run it on 3rd and 1. And then we're going to talk about the next play, the field goal. You're not supposed to win this game. You go for it on 4th and 1 in the red zone in a divisional game. You had the lead. Go for it. What is the worst thing that could happen? Oh, oh my God, you get stopped? Oh, wow. You're not supposed to win. Go for it. Get a controlling lead where it's going to take more than a possession to win, and you'll be fine. And I think less people would question you going for it than they would if your play call on 3rd down. You know what? That wasn't the worst play call. They weren't expecting it. It was just not very well executed. You look at the 4th and 1. Go for it. Run the ball. Do a quarterback sneak for all I care. Try to get that 1st down. It's 4th and 1. Don't kick a field goal and pretty much say, all right, our defense is going to stop Aaron Rodgers, who has torched us the entire second half. That is terrible. Absolutely terrible. I don't know who calls plays defensively or offensively in Chicago. I'd be more upset defensively because in the second half they played not to lose. And we all know what happens when you do that. You lose. Play to win the game, as Herm Edwards says. Leave it all on the grass, as he also said this weekend as Arizona State upset Michigan State. The Chicago Bears did not do that. After the kickoff, I believe it was either the first or second play of the drive, we saw why Kyle Fuller does not play offense. The ball hits you in your hands. Catch it. Catch it. Literally, you would have been a hero in Chicago, and you dropped it. Randall Cobb, next player a few plays later, catches the ball, runs 80-something yards. Touchdown. Game's over. Once Kyle Fuller dropped that ball, I knew the Bears were not going to win the game because you cannot give Aaron Rodgers a second chance. You give him a second chance, he will murder you. And I respect that. When you have somebody down, you step on their throat. You put the pedal to the metal and you just keep going. Don't look back. The Bears got a lot to work on. We will probably be talking about them this week on our Week 2 preview, but they got a lot to work on. They really do, and most of it is offensive. Honestly, more of it's just coaching, play calling, time management. No reason they should have lost that game. None whatsoever. That game was in hand, and they just took the foot off the gas. I don't know how else that can be put. They did not. They didn't want it, but Aaron Rodgers and the Packers clearly did, and they won the game. So then we got our last play of the week, and that is the Los Angeles Rams. I believe when we recorded, they were at -4 or -4.5. I got them at -6.5 on Monday. Still, great pick. Pretty much the game went almost exactly as I expected. I expected a little more dominance in the first half from the Rams. The second half is what I expected the whole game to be. Todd Gurley pretty much just killing the Raiders' poor defense. The Raiders did show some fight in the first half. Jared Cook looks great. If you could get him in fantasy, go get him. He had a phenomenal game. But the Rams covered. That was probably our most confident bet of the week, was the Rams covering, and they won by 20. But as I said at the beginning of the show, we're going to have a few different changes. So I'm not sure if Luke's going to be joining me for this week's video of the preview, but when he comes back, what we are going to be doing, because this week we shared our picks and we talked about our picks before the video, and I thought that was good, but not at the same time, because what we're going to do now is we're just going to share our picks, and we're going to have our own notes. Like, it's going to be I give a pick, he gives a pick, I give a pick, and we give our synopsis, and the other person will chime in if needed. But yeah, that's our show today. If you do have any name suggestions for the show, please feel free to DM me. We are looking for a more catchy name than what we have. I'm going to be thinking of stuff. We also have a weekly pick. We do weekly picks on our website. I will be tweeting out the link to that this week, so you could look at what everybody who writes for TSF and produces content for TSF thinks how this week's games are going to turn out. But I will continue to give you the gambling aspect of it. If you guys would like, I could do a video of just gambling basics, because I know a lot of people only gamble on football, but they don't really understand the basics of gambling and how to manage a bankroll and how to pretty much how much money you should put on a game. Um, I ended up I've gambled for multiple years now, and it's this week I was up $155. It's just how much you should put on. I do normally about $100. That's how most people do it. But just one thing about gambling is, if you get too involved with it and you start putting out more money than you have, you need to stop and you shouldn't do it. Gambling is money you don't need. You are going to play with money you don't need. That's how you should do it. If you guys would like, I could do a small video on that. Just as I said, feel free to DM me at FBCK also follow our main account at TSF Sports. I believe that's the main account. Sorry if I got it wrong. Let me check real quick. TSF96. I apologize. Pretty much that's our main account. You can follow me at FVCK Goodell. As I said, my name is Bryan Brisson, and I'm signing off. Have a great week.